You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors. The Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. Adding to that is the Doghouse, and so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too, but I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC, and hopefully our pups will run into each other. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. We are in downtown Oklahoma City today at a wonderful studio. I'm not going to tell you exactly where we are, but if you know my guest and you've been fortunate enough to be at this place, you know how special it is. Gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest today, Kelli Matthews-Smalling, Executive Director of Engage, which is a nonprofit here, Engage Learning. So excited to dive into that. But before we do, we're going to dive into your story. But I want to say one of the last times I was in this building was your quote, and I'm air quoting, surprise engagement finally, and wedding and all the stuff.
Yes.
That was a fun time. Thanks for inviting me. I had a great time here. But official congratulations on the broadcast to tell you congratulations to you and the man in the corner who's over there, who's been on the podcast before. Everyone knows him.
Thank you.
But yeah, congrats on that. That was awesome. And I love both of your wedding rings. I think they're super special.
Thank you. So, thank you so much. Now,
but enough of the soppy stuff. Let's go dive into it. Tell me a little bit about you. When people meet you for the first time, what do you kind of tell them, who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Oh, goodness. I make mischief. It brings me great joy to do so. Mm-hmm. Right now, that unfolds in the education space. So I have the privilege of leading a nonprofit called Engage Learning, and we are turnkey STEM and STEAM educators. But who I am? I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm a sister. I am a daughter. I am an Indigenous woman. I'm a citizen of the Muskogee Nation. I'm very proud to be a citizen. I'm an Oklahoman, born here, reared in Louisiana. I've never met a stranger, not ever. I used to fly alone when I was 6, and I would tell jokes to the people I rode next to on planes that I would read out of the back of magazines just to break the ice. And I learned there to be a little communicator. So I have a broadcast background and a science background, and I just like to make sure that I unsilo wisdom and I speak truth and I build, collaborations and leave things a little shinier.
Why are you flying solo at age 6?
Excuse me?
Why are you flying solo at age 6? Where are you going?
Flying solo at age 6. Oh, goodness. So when I was 6, we moved to Louisiana from Oklahoma, and I would fly back to see my dad.
Okay.
And I would fly southwest most of the time. So they would give you these buttons and then this triplicate badge that you had to wear, and they'd sign one and give it to your parent that was dropping you. And then they'd have another one for the parent that was receiving you. And then you had this, paper that Southwest would retain. So there was me. My feet wouldn't even touch the ground. And I was telling jokes about husbands cheating on wives and not getting into heaven and all of these things. And grown-ups sitting next to me asking, who is this little nugget over here telling jokes like a stand-up comedian? But, humor is a great tool to have in your rucksack.
If you look back now and see your 6-year-old or your 7-year-old or your childhood self, and you know where you're at now, but you tell that kid where they're at, what do you think that kid would say? Do you think they'd be happy with everything you've done?
Well, so to get real serious right off the bat, I think they would be super proud. My childhood was difficult. Obviously, if I'm flying at 6 years old, there was a level of resiliency there. But I think I would look at that and go, I would look at the older me, and the older me would look at the little me, and we would high five each other and say, way to stick it out, way to do the thing and live fully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the dreams when you were a kid?
I wanted to be an actress.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever been shy. And I don't think I've ever been afraid to be on stage. Because to me, acting was a wonderful way of playing pretend, but then I had the ability to do that in school and then in college as well. And then I learned really quickly that I like my nights and weekends.
You like going to shows on the weekends?
I like to go to shows and just be the ham in my house only, doing jazz hands periodically as I slide across the kitchen floor. That's about the extent of it now.
Yeah. I'm sure there was plenty of that going on. There's a lot of space here to slide around.
Oh, no doubt.
And great floors to slide on.
Yeah, socks in the winter are, it's a lot of moonwalking and a lot of risky business sliding.
Who, during that time then as a kid, who were like the I guess prominent figures that you look back on that maybe at the time you didn't understand or didn't realize were having a huge impact on your life, but now you realize that they did?
Oh, goodness. I lived across the street from some very fantastic humans in Louisiana from the time that I was from like 2nd to 4th grade, and then we remained friends after we moved. We moved around quite a bit. I went to 10 different schools, K through 12. But this particular group, the matriarch of the family was a woman named Maureen Monnier, and she was a science teacher, and she just welcomed me into the fold and was the one that encouraged that science side of my brain, taking me camping, taking me hiking, taking me out on boats with her family, where I didn't have that afforded to me within my own familial unit. I was able to grow and to kind of be fostered in this curiosity that was always there. I was always the kid, the first kid to go get the Band-Aids and the Bactine if somebody was hurt because it didn't gross me out. And I was digging in the dirt, pulling up earthworms and leaving milk in containers outside to see like how long it took to get real funky. But I liked all of that. And she really fostered that side of me. She was a wonderful mother too. So we're still friends, still in touch. She still likes pictures and sends me little messages and stuff. So it's wonderful. But she was a complete force of nature in my life that I didn't really fully realize until I stepped into this role that I'm in now in education.
Yeah. With the education side of things, when does that kind of just come hand in hand with your love for science?
So when I was pregnant with my older daughter, I substitute taught. And I was always very involved when I was in church. When I was involved with church, I was always involved with the youth group and spoke with youth, did Disciple Nows and things like that. But really, education came online for me seriously when I became a mother. I stayed home for a little bit with my girls. I have 2 daughters, Ryan and Caroline, and I was able to be homeroom mom. And it was during that time that I really more fully understood the requests we are placing and requirements we are placing on educators. And so I would go read at the classes and, spend time with the kids, razz them, form bonds. And then I decided to go back into my graduate studies after watching a documentary about climate change. But even after I got out of my program and I worked professionally in the corporate world, I chaired education outreach for Oklahoma Women in Technology. I always plugged into making sure that people understood the value of education because it is truly the one thing people can't take, right? You can fire and wire new neural pathways until you die. So that means that neuroplasticity exists within all of us, and it's a matter of just using it or losing it. And most children don't understand that they can become their own agents of change if they are provided the right scenario. And so that's really where education came in for me was, I worked in custom software and application development for nearly half a decade. And during that time, I was the only woman on about 70% of my calls. And then I was the only Native American woman on about 95% of my calls. So making sure education opportunities exist, because I know the value it provided me in my life. The ability to know that you can learn. Teaching someone how to learn and teaching someone how to fail. Those are skills that are so relevant across any vertical or any scenario in life. It makes people valuable employees. It makes people valuable partners personally in life. So I will always champion education.
Yeah. When we really forget about it after we graduate, right? You graduate or you go to grad school and, you get a job and maybe you've done all your studies and that's what's got you your job, whether it's, all the things, right? You kind of, and you don't need an education for most things, but there's things that, whether it's accounting, going to law school, teaching, whatever it is, like I would be shocked I would love to know the stats on if we went out into the street, in Oklahoma City and be like, what are you learning right now? Just ask that to everybody. The answers, there'd be a lot of people just be like, what do you mean? I'm not learning anything. And you're like, why not? And it's just not in their life anymore, which, when you talk about the brain and neural pathways and continue to learn or use it, if you use it and lose it, that's kind of sad, right? Yeah. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw my dad read a book. My mom reads all the time, but like my dad just doesn't. But my dad's handy man, could fix anything. So he's learning that way.
Yes. I was going to say, there are lots of ways that we can learn.
But not traditionally. He didn't graduate high school. But I would be interested to see, and also know the stats through the years of how old you are, which generation, are you in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and then are you continually learning, and how is that working? That'd be fascinating to me. I
agree. I think that there's a delineation mark in the desire for continuing education that exists. I think the mass adoption of technology has facilitated the opportunity for people to become autodidacts and self-educate at their own pace, but there isn't that level of adoption in a certain demographic that need to continue to learn in the digital landscape. Doesn't exist as top of mind, right? But you would think people don't understand that if you don't challenge yourself periodically or disrupt your own system, then where do you fit? We are entering into times where we are going to have to flex massive adaptive capacity. And I hope that people understand that the way to resiliency is through education.
Yeah, and even diving into technology and AI and all the things, AI can do everything for you, but the education now I think is going to lean towards asking the right questions and understanding the questions to ask properly.
And sitting with the answers.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's a mass. I was reading something the other day, and I can't remember what publication it was in, but it was talking about the cognitive collapse that happens when we become overly reliant on AI to solve problems. So that's where the sit with the answer, challenge the answer. Why was that the answer that was selected? That's going to become prompt writing and then intuiting the answer for application within your own scenario, because the AI can only know so much. It's obviously they're trained, right? We process things far faster than AI does, but it can give us a good framework. But if you become overly reliant on AI to answer and solve, you're denying your own absorption of knowledge and your own frustration through to the breakthrough, right? So I love AI. I will support AI's adoption across the board. I advocate for it within Indian country. Yeah. I advocate for it within my own organization. We've been able to kind of make it through some of the funding perturbations because we are reliant on digital platforms, and we have used AI as a backstop to do some staff augmentation. Yeah.
talking of technology and kind of like your education, where do you go when you're in high school, college, grad school, and then how during that timeline does technology start to get integrated into that, and where do you start finding a passion for how you can use that?
Ooh. I think the earlier humans are exposed to technology, the more we will understand how we move in harmony with it. So I would say it's the older people, there's a hesitancy, and there's nothing against that. I mean, I understand completely.
Yeah. We just hate change. The older we get, right?
Right. I mean, it is, because it's just another thing to have to do, right? I just want to like level road for a few miles, and I don't have to turn again. But that's part of being human. Where I see AI and technology fitting is going to become heavily analyzed in the near future. I was just watching the Signal CEOs talk about agent-based AI that comes in and acts on your behalf and schedules things and does things for you, and the level of access that you're giving to your own personal self. We want to maintain a good balance between utilizing the positives of AI, but protecting our humanity. And what I mean by that is, if we can't struggle to solve a problem without AI, what have we evolved into? Right? There should always be a contingency. There should always be a redundancy that's a human backstop to anything if we're looking at something significant, including something as significant as writing an essay.
Yeah. Right.
Right? We really want to make sure that we're fine-tuning things. I was privileged to get to go to South by Southwest EDU this year and sit in on a talk about the application of AI in elementary math courses as a way for the educator to allow the AI to grade, because it's very straightforward. You can train those models really easily. It's not subjective at all. Not only could it grade the AI, but it intuits areas of confusion, so that the teacher not only has the grades accounted for and that time back in their schedule, but they now have the ability to analyze their own education techniques for efficacy.
Yeah.
Right? That's powerful. That's where I see AI coming in the classroom. The machine learning that's going to come from being able to model education data sets, I think, is going to be really interesting too. That's an emergent space that I'm watching closely.
Yeah, well, and not to mention as a mum too, right? Like using all this alongside, and do you limit technology, or do you give Ryan free reign, like whatever it is? Like there's so many.
She listens to Alexa when Alexa tells her to do something more than she listens to me.
Programming Alexa to tell her what to do.
Yes, well, you can set reminders, and when we had a pretty easy schedule, I leveraged that, and she found the direction from the AI to be a little more palatable, I think. So, that is what it is.
That's awesome.
We use manners, though, because, Skynet at any point, who knows?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
When during your kind of like, not late childhood, early adulthood, do you think that, like, do you get that buzz or that just like spark from technology, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to dive into this and apply it to everything I have personally for you?
Ooh.
Is there a key moment?
Two moments. First time I got a CD player. Oh yeah.
So, I have music written down in my notes to talk about.
Okay, so I love music. Anybody who knows me knows that, like, if I'm existing in another universe out there, I'm probably a DJ. When I got my first CD player, it gave me the ability to kind of chart my own course in my mind. And in my room, I had a room, and that room had a player, and that player played so clearly, and it didn't skip, and it didn't bump, and it didn't have to flip it over, and you didn't have to rewind, and you could just go about, and it was wonderful. And I could fall asleep to James Taylor's Greatest Hits, which was my first CD, Volume 1. The second moment that was, wow, I love technology, was when I first got my camcorder when I was in junior high.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. My friend groups, at any given point, we were making videos. In high school, I ended up graduating from Jinx in Tulsa, and they had a TV show that aired every 2 weeks called High Jinx. And that's really where I fell in love with production.
And the news, that's how the news is introduced to you. Okay.
Absolutely. So my undergraduate degree is in broadcast communication with the emphasis in production. So I was a theater kid from the time I was in 5th grade. So I had all the on-camera, on-stage stuff. I didn't worry about that, but I really wanted to learn the technology side of it and be able to be a one-man band and go out and do my own thing. And I graduated from UCO, and that program is outstanding. UCO, I'm happy Broncho over here. They had a daily newscast when no other university had one when I was in school. And so you really had that grind, that slam of compression of time and understanding how to move with that. Dick Sweezy was the interim chair of the department during that time, and he was a wonderful human. He ended up getting me my first job straight out of school at his church at Quail Springs Baptist. And then I got hired at Channel 9 by a gentleman named Grayson Cook, who's now back at Channel 9. And I saw him the other day and gave him a big hug. But yeah, I was a video editor and voiceover SOT reporter. Yep.
Did you think you were always going to be there when you're going through school and you've been doing it through high school and you get to UCO and you have your news and broadcasting degree and you think, yeah, I just want to be on the news and standing in front of, that camera with a microphone and or standing behind it in production? Like, did you think that this could be a career? I'm going to, retire here as well. And then I guess the other thing too is, a lot of people in that industry, you're moving around a lot, right? Because you're getting into different markets. Some markets are bigger than smaller. And, a lot of the newscasters here generally migrate to Dallas, right? It seems like it. Yeah. Was that like kind of in your future plan?
When I graduated, I got married my last semester in college, so that really kind of kept me from being able to move freely. Right. But I was lucky to get a job here at the CBS affiliate because it was a good-sized market, or a mid-sized market, and to get a role, even a toe in reporting. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. But I think I had a pleasurable experience because I took some really great advice from Dr. Donna Goff, who I was actually at East Central before then. And she taught a broadcast news class that we made shirts that said, "Why is it news?" Because every time we would bring her a story, she would say, "But why is this news?" Yeah. But she had some really great advice, and it was, be careful what you allow yourself to see, because you can't unsee it. And I worked in the news business during a particularly difficult time for global politics. There were lots of beheadings that were being broadcast, and those would come down raw to us, and I would never participate. I know there were people in the newsroom would, because it was breaking news, and I remember her words in my head, and it kept my mind clear. But what ultimately moved me away from being there forever was the world can be really ugly sometimes. And growing up in New Orleans, I was there when Katrina hit, and I had to take in all the raw footage. I had to take in and see all of that. Editors are really kind of some heroes in the broadcast world because we're the pool filter for the rest of everything. We see all of it because the photographers go out and spray the scene, as they say, and they shoot everything because more often than not that's their job, and they know. But then it's up to the editors to be that kind of that barrier for the rest of the world. And after a while, it got harder and harder to set that down because I'm a joyful person, and to see repeatedly humanity kind of stumble over its own footing. It was really kind of demoralizing. But I still remain really, 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 really close friends with a lot of the folks in that space and place. And I still have a police scanner on my phone.
Well, that's leading into that. That is, I think probably the problem, I would say, with news, right, is that like, disaster and angry people and whatever it is sells, right? Like that, their headlines, it's never, not, it's generally pretty negative towards the one or two videos of, a friend tagged me in a video of her grandmother celebrating the thunder win, right? Like that's feel good content. But you put that up against 10 other videos of disaster or shooting or natural disaster or politics or whatever it is, like it fires people up, and then that drives clicks. But I can see how mentally, when you're dealing with a lot of stuff, it's like the sun's never shining, the flowers are never blooming because my day's full of dark stuff. You don't have Windows
in an editing bay,
Like,
right?
and then you got to step out into the world and act like everything's okay.
Yeah, and when the newscast ends at 10:30, it took a while to be able to go to bed.
Yeah. And it starts again the next day.
Yeah,
so
at noon, gotta arrive and get everything going again. So I edited the 4, 5, 6, and 10.
Okay.
And I was a newbie during that time too, so I worked weekends and all of the holidays. But I tell you what, I think it's because of that I'm still friends with so many of the people that I worked with during that time, because you just become a troop, a family. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say this. Thank goodness for reporters, because knowing that we have media and press and the ability to report on what's going on in a space or place is critically important and should always be protected.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to, even before social media, right? That's where everyone gets and people still get their news and everything from there. It's just in a different platform now, but they're still coming through the same channels. It's just that channel is now on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
It's on demand.
It's still the same broadcast, but it's having and then getting in front of the camera and trying to cover a story that's you don't have much time to do it like that. That side of it is like ties into your acting skills too, right? I'm like, no, I just need to deliver this in a concise way.
Yes.
If you need to.
Well, and being able to understand, so the VO reporting was really interesting because you have just a limited time. So it was the times that I did it, it was house fires and things like that were just boom, 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 and you get people on the spot. I think the greatest frustration with the reporters that I worked with over my time and still is there's just not enough time to tell the whole story. Right? Yeah. Because the whole story is so much richer, and there's so many other variables and externalities that are at play most of the time. That most would lament the fact that they had to squeeze this into 90 seconds and then write it in a way that is accessible to the average viewer, right? Yeah.
So many things you've got to have the context for, right, to really understand it. And I think a lot of people who get interviewed are irritated about that too. And they're trying to tell the whole story, but they're not professionals. They don't know. They're trying to get their words out, and then it goes to editing, and they're like, "Wait a second, like you only use this bit." I'm like, "Well, sorry,
sorry, the rest is on the floor."
Yeah, that's the job. So you said you leave there. Where do you transition to after getting out of the news business?
So I stayed home with my daughter for 9 months. So my oldest daughter, she's 18 now. Yeah. I was incredibly proud of her, incredibly proud of both of them. I stayed home, and then when I needed to go back to work, I wanted to do photography, which is a real passion of mine. So there was a posting for a school day portrait photographer. And I threw my hat in, and I got hired, and then I got promoted because I started booking shoots while I was there. So school day portraits. I tell you what, you learn a lot about how to communicate with children when you try to get them to pose correctly for
and
a portrait.
Smile properly so their parents happy, not throwing a face.
All of that stuff, and then how do you say lift up straight? I learned to say point your chin at my chin.
Oh, that's a great.
Point your nose at my nose. Yeah. So I went there. I was promoted into sales, and then I ended up transitioning into the sports side of it. and was able to book all of OU athletics, team and individuals. And then I ended up running the sports division of the photography company. So it's called Candid Color Photography.
Okay.
They're a national photography lab that's out of here. They founded Glamour Shots and Party Pics, right?
Yeah.
But they also have a very robust sports division that does team and individual league shots and stuff like that. And so I worked for them for a while, and I would train people how to sell and book, and kind of top to bottom, make sure they were making money off of that engagement as photographers, because really the why of my division's existence was to kind of proof of concept, new photography techniques, new lab technology, and new methodologies for selling in the digital landscape. It's in the middle of when Kodak was transitioning, so it was a wild time, and I stayed there for 5 years.
Okay. What is it about photography that just kind of gets the juices flowing and lights you up?
It speaks when I can't.
Okay.
I like to show. Actually, I don't even mean to do it. I'll be walking by something and it stops me. There's a framed something that I have to capture.
Yeah.
It's like a pull. It's like smelling, a good pastry. It's like, oh, but it's a picture. And to me, when I see pictures, there's always a song that kind of goes with it, or it will help whoever's seeing it understand how I view it. So I tend to, whenever I post my photography, to partner with the song, because it's a complete sensory experience for me when it happens. And photography can communicate on a whole different level to the heart, the mind, the spirit, where words just fail. And people can, just like with art, you don't have to speak the same language to be able to appreciate something. And I really like anything that brings all kinds of people together. That's my jam.
Was there I know you mentioned a moment with music and technology. Was there a moment with photography that you like, oh, I actually have a natural eye for this and this speaks to me?
In my father's office, I don't see him anymore, but in my father's office, I'm pretty sure there sits a picture of the bumper, a chrome bumper of a Chevy, old Chevy, like 57 Chevy, that just happened to have a license plate from Kansas from the year 1948, which is the state and year in which my dad was born, on a vehicle that he loved. And I took this perspective picture of it, and it was gorgeous. And I looked at it and I'm like, did I do that? did that come out of, did I make that happen? It was filmed too, so I didn't even know what it looked like until I picked it up from the processing center. So I got it and I looked at it, and it was kind of like looking at myself when I had my braces off for the first time, and I'm like, well, that's my smile? Oh, that's my picture? Oh, okay, all right, very good. And then from then, I've taken the training that I had in the photography company and kind of married it. I only shoot on my iPhone. It's a fun limitation that I have to work with, a fun constraint, if you will. I think I wouldn't be as honest if I had to pull a camera out. Yeah.
It's a great piece of technology to have, isn't it? I recently had Kevin Ford on the podcast and Emily Barclay, and they're documentary filmmakers, and he's like, all you need is your iPhone. It's like, I film with my iPhone, not all the time, but if it's all I have, it's adequate.
Yeah.
And having that, being in the right corner or being in the right moment and getting the shot, and whether it's photography or videography, if it's all you have, you work with what you have.
Well, I think you've hit on something really interesting here, working with what you have, because we're all photojournalists now.
Yeah.
But none of it, we are not trained.
No, and we get instant feedback, right? You don't have that waiting of the film and as much, obviously.
No.
People still shooting film, but you don't get that, like, oh, you gotta wait, does it look good? Or
Delayed gratification, right? Or the seriousness, kind of like learning without AI, the seriousness of course correction. Yeah. You pay a lot of money to develop film and you've overexposed the entire roll. You tend to hang on to the course correction for a while of what you need to do. You don't have that same kind of backstop to reinforce the adaptation or iteration or versioning that you're doing. But I think along with the fact that everybody is, and they are all becoming journalists in their own right. We all have cameras to capture whatever moment unfolds before us, but none of us have the ethical training, in mass, to know what should or shouldn't be captured, and then what should or shouldn't be broadcast. And that isn't should or shouldn't freedom of speech. There are some things that, for instance, if you're in a crowd full of children and maybe one of those children is in a protective situation, you can't just throw that up there without permission. People don't know that.
It's not even on their radar.
No.
Right?
And you don't know who's watching, right? So it's an interesting time. We've kind of opened Pandora's box where that's concerned, but I will keep it open. I think the benefit outweighs the risks with that.
Yeah. Somebody once told me, and this was in kind of the terms of, kind of keep your head down, keep doing what you're doing. The right people will reach out to you because somebody is always watching.
Yeah.
And you never know that because they never tell you they're watching. But you might get an email or a message or a phone call, 18 months from now, and someone's been following you this whole time, kind of just checking in to see if you're, whether it's for a position, whether it's for, artwork, whether it's for a job, whatever it is, you don't know that they're watching, and you have to constantly have that reminder because you might go do something and post something that you think is completely fine, but it's affecting somebody somewhere.
Somebody somewhere, absolutely. And I think about my brother. My brother's fiercely private. He doesn't even use his name on his Instagram, and he has 0 pictures posted, right? If I were to post something in a scenario where I know that he values his privacy, rightfully so. But if I were to throw something up like that in a familial environment where he's probably letting loose or doing something, that could jeopardize the professional outward persona, and not in a bad way, but like what he's crafted over time, that could be turned off in 1 second. Yeah. And I don't think people think a lot about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because you don't think about, or you're not in control of the way that somebody is viewing it, right? You see it through your eyes. Oh, this is fine, it's just a picture. But when someone's viewing it from their perspective and they don't like it, or they see something that's off,
absolutely,
that's not like,
no.
You're totally out of your control.
100%.
And with 0 intention as well, but someone sees it and they're like, oh, that's...
Well, they read into things. And I think I was having this conversation with my husband the other day about, the digital nuances of how you act on social media is very much like the fan behavior, from the 1600s, where people were slapping and doing this, and there was just there's all this subtext that's going on, and if you aren't careful, or if you don't remain kind of digitally proficient in trends and understandings of things, you could be unintentionally representing yourself incorrectly.
That's the tough part, right? It's just waking people up and making people educated on that. The kids are growing up now and they don't know. That's just the way they were raised. And they think, oh, you're in a public place, we can shoot video and take photos. And, because there's obviously a lot more opportunities to be creative now than there were.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great for you as an educator and to be a mom and be like, look, Ryan can kind of have everything she wants to create and, kind of build those neural pathways and have this AI enhanced learning. Good and bad, right? Like there's it's great, but there's also people that, take it different ways. Moving on with you though, when you were with the photography company for a while, take me to that time then when you transition. What do you transition into? Are you doing a little bit of teaching as well as in that time, or does that come after?
So I stayed home.
Substitute teaching.
I stayed home and had my second child.
Okay.
And I was a terrible stay-at-home mother. I was incredibly bored, and I hate laundry and I hate housekeeping, but I became proficient.
You don't strike me as someone who likes to sit still or fold clothes
and
all the things.
No. So I became homeroom mom. I helped out. I was a good neighbor.
Yeah.
I was a really good neighbor. I miss my neighbors terribly from that time. I love them completely with my whole heart. We had a cul-de-sac, and we would just we all had children, and we'd let them run, and it was really, really kind of sweet time. And then I watched a documentary.
This documentary you speak of about climate change.
Yes. Chasing Ice is the name of it.
Okay.
And I watched it, and I watched these scientists trying with such intensity to communicate the climate crisis, what was unfolding, and they were terrible communicators. They were horrible. I mean, I don't, no offense to anybody, if anybody knows someone in my heart broke because I was understanding, because I have a high aptitude for understanding technology and science.
Right.
But even listening to them, it was like, why, what? No, okay. And it kind of created maybe like an irritation or an itch inside my brain. Like, Kelly, you're a trained communicator. Maybe you can help out, since you have daughters that are going to have to live through the outcomes of the decisions that our generation's going to make, right? And I was like, okay, so what do I want to do? I want to go to meteorology. Sure, let's see what I can do. I've got my degree. What will it take for me to go back and go into meteorology? Because I absolutely love it. I loved Gary England. I loved working with him. It was a blast. I spent a lot of time in the Weather Center. Then came the math and science classes that were the requirements to get into meteorology. And I was like, oh, yeah, I don't have those. So that would require a whole lot of back work. But I landed in the environmental sustainability program and was accepted into their Masters of Science program. And I fell in love.
Why?
Why environmental sustainability?
Yeah. Well, actually, before we get into that,
okay,
we have to honorable mention, rest in peace, Gary England. Greatest moments with Gary before we dive into you going into the environmental stuff. I
was so nervous to talk to him when I started working there, because he kind of has a charge to him, right? There's like he's Gary England, he's done the stuff. He's been the guy. Mm-hmm. And we ended up in the break room together one night and started talking, and he was so kind. He was so approachable. He took a genuine interest in me, and I don't think the man ate anything else other than Healthy Choice meals. And if you've ever had a Healthy Choice meal, there's like a certain smell that no matter what flavor of Healthy Choice you have, there's a Healthy Choice scent. And I associate that scent with him a lot. He was great. He was great during, breaking weather. He was just a great human. People enjoyed working with him. You're really hard pressed to find anybody who had anything bad to say about the guy.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay, diving into the environmental sustainability, what part of, before we dive into that, the interest of it, what part of you just like morally, that part of you in you that speaks to you, that, because there's a lot of people that just like, I don't care, it ain't going to be here by the time I leave, I'm going to be dead and in the ground if, climate change, all this stuff. What part of you was about it that really like struck a chord where you're like, you know what, I really care about this stuff?
Yeah, the first American in me, okay. The indigenous woman, the Native American, the Muskogee. That's where it resonated, because in order to understand sustainability, which I don't even use that word anymore, I want to look for regenerative solutions, because sustainable is not, we don't want to sustain anything, but generational planning was always something that was really incredibly important. Understanding that the decisions I'm making today will impact future generations, and having children, that makes it a lot easier to frame. But in indigenous Native American culture, the concept of 7 generations is talked about wildly, and it's probably something that exists, pretty pervasively in Indian country, from nation to nation, band to band, tribe to tribe, corporation to corporation. But it's the concept that you are making a decision today that will impact your line 7 generations from now. Okay. And a lot of people have heard that. especially in Oklahoma. There are companies called Seven Generations. They're, they've capitalized on those kind of things, that indigenous wisdom everybody wants to get in on now. The part about the Seven Generations that speaks to me, though, in this moment, was the fact that I was somebody's seventh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that meant that somebody fought and cried and persevered and survived so that I could express my intentions and obligations as a Native American woman fully. And if I have the opportunity to do that, the greatest issue facing our planet right now is ensuring that we don't tip the scales too far in a direction that makes living on this planet any more inhospitable for our particular species and the other species that we have the privilege of sharing this planet with. Right?
Yeah.
Understanding that there is a harmony that exists between man and nature. Understanding that nature wants to heal itself and we tend to get in the way. It's been as much of a journey for me to come home into my own nation as it was for me to understand how I fit my particular skill set, all the things in life that I'd gone through that brought me to a moment of being able to communicate the complexities of climate change in a way that's accessible to the layperson, right? When you speak to people and you speak to them in acronyms and, industry jargon, they opt out of the conversation. They'll be very pleasant.
Yeah.
They'll be very nice, but you can see the glaze in the eyes and the fear that they can't contribute or the fear of being perceived as ignorant on a topic. People tend to opt out of those conversations and self-select out if they feel like they're being talked down to or if they're being talked above their head. So it became a passion of mine to be able to speak the science and technology in ways that was accessible, that are accessible to everybody.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time people tie it into politics, don't they? Mm-hmm. Right? Sadly, and they all immediately think, oh, climate change, and they don't give it the time it deserves and actually sit down and have a conversation and think, well, here's the data, here's what's happening, here's what's happened since we've been here and all these things. Mm-hmm. They just tie it to a political politician immediately, and it strikes the negative chord in them instead of saying, you know what, this is how we can learn from climate change, or this is how we can learn from all of this, like you mentioned, the species that we exist with, because and even the pathways within the plants and all the things, mm-hmm. right? Like, it's fascinating. Yeah. It really is. And then how we learn from that and how we relate to that as well.
Yes.
Because we can relate to that. We're going to end up in the ground at some point.
Absolutely.
And there's a cycle, and our cycle is maybe a little longer, a little shorter than the other beings that are around us.
Yeah.
But there's so much kind of detail there.
Yeah.
That, like, we could sit here for 10 hours and nerd out completely,
yes.
right? But it is really fascinating. And I think a lot of people then dive into diet and their food, right? And you mentioned music earlier, just the effect that music has on neural pathways, whether it's even just the effect that music has on water, right? When you see water and you play music around it, or patterns and all these sound waves.
So 120, 130 BPM is now scientifically proven to help with attention deficit disorder. If you listen to EDM at that BPM.
I love that music.
I do.
That's the UK guy in me that loves dance music.
Oh, well, I mean, we do like some EDM here in the house, most definitely. But as far as things being politicized, anything can be politicized.
Yeah.
We're looking at education being politicized in our state right now, which is unfortunate. But going back to needing good communicators and sound communicators and effective communicators, I think when everything was coming to the surface and people and scientists were all taking a look at what, at the time, global warming, we don't say that anymore. And we say climate change because places are going to be anomalously cold. I think they just weren't prepared to communicate at scale the complexity that we were facing. And I think it's become an environment where otherization has grown wild. We can look at the role of oil and gas, and I can say I'm a fourth generation family member to have worked in oil and gas. And I am an advocate for freshwater availability. I'm an advocate for lowering emissions, but I'm also an advocate for disposable IVs.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. I mean, we only get that right now, but we have great people coming online with some different plastics, like Utopia Plastics.
Yeah.
That's an awesome company.
Sharina's amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm a fangirl from afar, so.
Yeah.
But it's just dynamic and it's ever changing, and we live in a system that can heal itself. COVID showed us what the planet was able to do in a matter of days, weeks, without having to continuously offset the inputs that we're bringing to it.
Yeah. Tell me about your how do we get to, from there into, because you go to Clever, is that where you go for a little bit?
Well, so I was hired out of my program after
Yeah.
doing an internship with the Department of Energy.
Okay.
I was a part of the Sunshot Initiative, and I was subgroup underneath that called Soul Smart, which was solar utility engagement. So I was recruited in my program to be an intern, and I was recruited out of my program to launch a nonprofit that was associated with bringing applied research to market. And at that point, I needed the money.
Right, yeah.
I did not need the degree. So I worked for 2.5 years at the intersection of hydrocarbons and renewables, putting together collaborative research initiatives that focused on produced water recycling and reuse, fugitive methane monitoring and mitigation, clean power pad sites that had really wonderful power purchase agreements put in place to off-take excess generation from the renewables, but really looking at the entire pad site for all of the inputs that exist there. We had a really strong strategic partner that unfortunately went through bankruptcy, and at that point I knew the folks at Clever and was able to hop over into technology where I had zero experience. But a lot of smile.
Well, but everything else that you've done leads into something that adds to their team.
Well, I know,
right?
I can learn.
There's a reason that they hire you.
I know I can learn.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the value of education, is if you really properly challenge students, then they have the confidence to say, well, I may not know it now, but I have faith in my ability to learn it.
Yeah.
And so I dove into custom software and application development for a most wonderful shop here in Oklahoma City that's kind of under the radar, but definitely filled with some of the coolest people on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great team over there.
Yeah.
They're awesome people.
I loved working there so much.
Shout out to the team at Clever if they're listening. You know exactly who you are. What was your biggest takeaways from working in kind of like the water space?
We're shifting how our planet stores water.
Okay. In what way?
We're going from solid to liquid through glacial melt, and we're going from liquid to gas in thermoevaporation.
Okay. For people who don't have a clue what you just said, what does that mean?
Shall I tell you in the lay terms
Please do
now
that
and
for
flex my
own,
communication skills?
Yeah.
Basically, when glaciers melt, it turns into liquid.
Yeah.
And then just like when you put a pot of water on your stove and you turn on the heat, it turns into steam. The same thing's happening to the water that exists on the surface of our planet. As we warm, we're losing surface water. We are drawing down on groundwater and our aquifers at rates that are unprecedented. There's no way to tell how much the drawdown is impacting the aquifers across our nation, but it's happening. And that's problematic on a couple of levels. If I can focus on glaciers for a second. There's a measurement called albedo that exists within the I don't even know. It's a scientific term that speaks to the amount of radiation absorption or reflection of a color.
Okay.
So if you wear a black shirt outside, you get hotter than if you wear a white shirt outside, meaning that the radiation is absorbed and held in the darker color longer. When we go from white glaciers to dark blue ocean, we're losing that level of radiation reflectivity back out into our atmosphere and up and out and out of the greenhouse gas layer out.
That makes sense. Okay.
So that act alone is shifting the heat component.
So is that why Alaska just had its first ever
Heat warning?
heat warning, heat advisory? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of years and years of that.
Plus, the Arctic is warming 7 times faster than the rest of the. At least that was the last statistic I heard, that it's warming 7 times faster. And so when you think about thermal expansion, think about your car tire.
Yeah.
So you've got the polar vortex up here, real tight. As it warms, it starts to expand on a molecular level, which means that we're seeing these cold snaps come deeper and farther down because we are expanding the polar vortex. What that means is it's burning. It has more energy than the rest of the planet because it's heating faster. Well, that's causing these things in Alaska. Also, we're seeing jet stream activity that's interesting. We're seeing the North Atlantic current change because of the glacial melt. So we are, you've got your warm water on the top, your cold water on the bottom. Warm water's larger on a molecular level. The cold water is denser on a molecular level. And you're adding in brine. And it's changing. What the balance has been is that warm and cool to kind of churn each other, right? And it keeps this conveyor belt of life going. And right now we're playing around with that through glacial melt. It's adding gunk into the system, essentially. It's slowing it down. And when we slow that down, we're messing with the natural life cycles that exist on the planet. And most people don't understand the role that the oceans play. They are a gigantic scrubber of CO2 out of our atmosphere. They take, which is why you see the bleaching of coral. It's because you were adding CO2 into our oceans. We're adding other molecules and compounds and into our waters to a degree that it is making it acidic. It is turning life upside down. We're seeing chaos with animals and beachings in scale and mass that we haven't seen. But water was a focus of mine from the beginning because we can only survive 3 days without it. And we know that as the planet warms, water is going to shift. And so I focused in my program specifically on the hydrologic cycle, but really where temperature rise and conflict outbreak. So understanding the role that heat plays in the hydrologic cycle and how that drives conflict from the interpersonal to the societal. Yeah, weird.
It's fascinating stuff, though. I love it because it just has, not to use a cliche, but the ripple effect from it is far and wide. And, you see this effect somewhere in some place that you never expected, and you tie it all back, and you're like, it's because we've got more water in our oceans. And you're like, it's not as simple as that, but it is.
Well, right? Well, you look at places. So when I was in my program, Cape Town was facing its 0 day with water. So, millions of people can't, they're going below their water line. Sao Paulo as well was going through that at the same time. And it was really interesting to me. I also studied water fixes. So I studied the California water fix and the Louisiana Coastal Restoration Project from a systems thinking standpoint, from a complex adaptive systems standpoint, understanding, these are $1 billion investments that the respective states are making to ensure that fresh water flows. And neither one of the plans is really sound. Surprise.
Shocker.
Yeah. Right. So it was important getting to work in oil and gas. Oil and gas is an incredibly water intensive vertical. The water problem is the biggest nut that has to be cracked within the next decade in oil and gas.
And we have so much of it here, don't we? And it's a huge business.
Yeah, and depending upon the formation, you may have 9 barrels of water to 1 barrel of oil in an extraction process. So they're pulling water out too. And I got to be a part of projects that looked at valuations of the constituents that existed within that water, from saline to rare earth elements. Very cool. People listening, someone in here is listening is going to be like, it is really cool, and someone isn't, but that's the beauty of everybody and what they're into. But I am water
fascinated
nerd
by it.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people they just don't think about it because it's not on their radar.
Yeah.
They turn their tap on, their water comes out of it. Like they're
Yeah.
not thinking about it. They're not living in a place where their water is discolored and it's got, stuff in it that, can really ruin you.
Yeah.
Depends who you talk to on that, though. There's a lot of people out there that would argue that.
Lead and arsenic are pretty, hexavalent chromium.
Yeah.
Those are all some pretty gnarly things that should not be in water.
Right. We could sit here forever. I know we could. Let's talk about, how do we transition into you then being the executive director of Engage Learning, and then how do you take everything you've learned from your entire life, what you're good at, all the little, things that you have that make you who you are, to put you into this executive director role to really make a huge impact and leave a legacy?
So I was a fan of Engage Learning when I was chairing education outreach at Oklahoma Women in Tech, which is a great group. They are fantastic, by the way. I just want to heart hug them all for just being ferocious. I got wind that the organization was in distress, and it was timing well because I was ready to transition. I'd been at Clever for a while. Things were kind of moving in that direction anyway. And to me, it was a no-brainer. It was a dream job to be able to go into spaces and places and provide opportunities for people to understand where their limits lie. That's a fascinating place to operate. And it brings me joy. Now, is it a gnarly situation I stepped into? Oh my gosh, yes. Do I know anything about nonprofits? Not as much as I probably should have stepping into this role. And I don't have a formalized education background. But I stepped into a role with a team of some of the best people who are oriented perfectly for their role. My team, they're why we're here today. It has been such a joyful moment for me to be able to step into power, to speak to the little girl, the 6-year-old, right? And say, I'm going to give that version of you a chance to make some mischief. Or that version of me, rather, the chance to do something that you'd be really excited to have the power to do. And it was DG who was like, Kelli, you realize that you can kind of drive for a bit. And that's why I have the Care Bear here, because the Care Bears are something I loved when I was little. And so now I have like a line of them that every time I have a moment of success, we go to Old Paris Flea Market and go buy myself a new one. And I love it. They brings color to the back of my shots. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for him, but really, truly getting to be in a role with people who wake up every day and get to teach kids how to make mini lightsabers or learn how to 3D print. Or really, when people ask me what we do, I say we teach people how to fail. We teach people how to fail successfully because we work with a lot of kids in underserved and underrepresented communities. We work with a lot of adults from privileged communities, and no one knows how to fail.
I'm an adult at 34 years old, and it's not something we enjoy doing, but I was never taught how to fail either, and it's something that I think people, you always hear the things, the business gurus fail faster and all this thing, but what does that actually mean, right?
Because but we all have head trash.
How do you deal with it?
Yeah, you aren't the failure, the moment, the attempt. So I've had this awesome opportunity to get to spend some time with the Vance family at Remington, and through DG's partnership there, it's been really great. And I was having a conversation with one of the folks out there talking about jockeys lose more than they win, but they don't look at it as something that's going to stop them from getting back up on the saddle, right? No, they're like, okay, what did I learn this time? It's like golf. We play golf, right?
Yeah.
We're both golfers.
Yeah.
It's the micro changes. You don't look at a bad drive as a failure to the hole. It was just that moment, that swing, that choice, that bad grip or distraction.
No one
or,
makes 18 hole-in-ones.
No.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we have placed pressure on the classroom and the outcomes or activities in the classroom to have to be always successful. When we do projects with kids, sometimes we'll disrupt them intentionally and say, and now you have an extra project, or you don't have scissors anymore.
And time limit, and so you put them under, you know, like I said,
absolutely
different circumstances, so they're not going to succeed, but they learn that way.
For sure.
Yeah.
And how to do so collaboratively is even more difficult.
Yeah.
So doing that in a group setting, doing that with a group of 8-year-olds,
Yeah.
it becomes complex.
Yeah.
And, you know, teachers have to deal with that every day, but really what we zone in on is creating moments where they can fail, break through to succeed in success. And then you've done it.
Yeah.
That's the moment where they realize that they can. And whatever challenge it is, whether it's like, oh my gosh, the flusher on my toilet broke off. Do I need to call somebody or can I do it myself? I hope every child and learner that is working with Engage tries it themselves. Yeah. Goes to Lowe's and buys the dadgum bits and pieces and just at least gives it an effort, because I think I am contending, and I've had to contend over the past decade with a concept that I call Tefloning, which is when something hits somebody's desk and it just slides right off onto somebody else's desk. I'm a little worried about that concept and how pervasive it is in society, and I hope what we're doing at Engage is teaching kids to when, or learners, when something hits their desk, it's there for a reason and there to review it because their mind's valuable. I think a lot of the reason we see Tefloning is because people don't want to fail. Yeah,
I agree. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy subject to talk about. It's not an easy thing because... And I think you probably have to do the education side of it also goes into the group setting and being like, you know, I think a lot of people don't push on or try one more time. It's not necessarily because they know they can't do it. It's because of the pushback or the teasing they're getting from their peers that are like, oh, you're failing, ha ha ha, whatever, you missed that shot or you missed that putt or, you know, you didn't win that race. Like, that's what I see, and I think that dives into my own personal stuff of like a lot of stuff times we don't try things just because we're not worried that we can't do it, we're worried about what someone will say if we fail. And that comes a lot from, I see a lot of that back home. That's just ingrained in people, and I notice it as soon as I get home, like there's just a negativity in the air, but they don't realize it, and I only noticed it when I came to the States.
Are you familiar with the concept of learned helplessness?
I'm not, no.
So there's a reel going around on the socials that showed a teacher give her class anagrams, and she gave one half of her class anagrams that were solvable and one half of her class anagrams where 2 of them were not solvable, but the third one was. So the class that had the unsolvable was watching the side get it quickly and easily, not realizing that there were 2 separate tests in play. So by the third one, the side of the class that had the 2 that were unsolvable approached the third as if it was unsolvable as well. That's learned helplessness. That is thinking that I can't, so I'm just not gonna try. Oh, good golly.
Dangerous.
That's dangerous, because then that creates an interiority of helplessness, and it sets a particular person on a path where they have limited agency over where they go and what they do. Yeah. And I don't think that that's okay.
No, it's not. It isn't at all. And that's the battle, right? It's the battle of dealing with the mental side of it, you know, because you're a human being, you can learn things. No matter how hard it might be, like, you can figure it out. Yeah. Right? And there's certain things, obviously, like, you know, you're not going to be a professional basketball player by starting today. But at the same time,
you can understand the concept of the game in a day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And all these things. But like you said, there's a great quote, I think, you know, again, same reel or something I keep saying on Instagram. I'm seeing every now and then this guy, you know, they asked this guy thing and he said, I'll quote my father. And my father said, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And that question just kind of levels every doubt, right? Like, oh, I do this. Okay.
Then do it.
Then let's start, right? What's that first step?
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the times, whether it's, you know, putting yourself out there as an artist or putting yourself out there as an athlete or going for a position that you might not be qualified for, but you know you can learn, it helps the greater good to society for people to do that, because then we raise each other up and we all, you know, it's not just for one person. Like, we all do this.
Yes.
Like, how much better is society if we all improve, like, by a tiny little bit?
A well-informed populace is a good thing.
Yeah.
Many minds lead to great outcomes. And I believe that. And if we aren't challenging ourselves to say we can be better and we're 49th in the nation for education, then where are we going to challenge ourselves? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I know, obviously, we just won our first NBA championship, but we're still 49th in education. Because I keep seeing that meme going around. It's like, we're 49th in education and 48th in something else. Maybe it's health. But we're number one in the, you know, it is what it is.
Well, and it is what it is. You're exactly right. That's where you land. It's through that dissatisfaction. That's the churn in the water that creates change agents within our community. And that's fine. You take all the challenges away, then people don't know what to do with themselves. Yeah. You know? We like challenges. As a species, I think we like to work on things and busy ourselves with stuff. But it doesn't mean that we need to ignore the challenges that exist that aren't pleasant.
Yeah.
You know? There's some real work for our generation. We have a lot of real serious, heavy work, but we also have the ability to have fun at scale and in ways that no generation before us has ever been able to experience. We now have the ability to know ourselves on a cellular level, know ourselves on a cognitive level, more than any other time in history. Yeah. So it's beautiful and it's chaotic, but it's what we've been given, and it's our little tree ring. It's our time, like the Goonies. This is our time. It's our time. Yeah.
How do you teach, educate, put that in front of people, but also one of the things which I think you said earlier, maybe we weren't recording when you said it, but collaboration is key, and time to collaborate. It's never been better now.
Yeah.
How do you, in your current role, Engaged Learning, use collaboration as a way to foster these, new ways of thinking or open these doors for the kids?
I'm going to go Jack from Lost here and say, live together, die alone.
Yeah.
That's where we are right now. The only way we are going to, as a state, become resilient is through collaboration, through empathy building, and through multi-stakeholder engagements that are created to solve problems and not be self-congratulatory. I would like to see organizations that are nonprofits in nature make themselves non-essential because they've solved for the problem that they were created to solve, and then they go away and solve a new problem. Yeah. That's what I would like to see, because being around just to be around, and not really putting the rubber to the road and rolling up your sleeves and saying, these are problems that we want to tackle, instead of, this is how I want to feel. We need to get past that. Yeah. We do. And I think the time for collaboration and strong collaboration with people who understand that the time is now is mission critical. It's mission critical. And I'm really right there at the front of it. And we're ready to collaborate, and I've been making Mischief, spinning up collaborations all over the place, because we don't need to fight over a piece of the pie. And I'm going to quote my dear friend Emily Masters Rosenthal and say, we don't need to fight over a slice of the pie, we just need to bake a bigger pie. That's where we are. Yeah. And I'm hopeful that there are so many Oklahomans that feel the same way, and I know that they do. We're working on finding each other, and we're working on building this kind of tapestry of care for our state that is resilient and effective and agile. Yeah. Yeah.
A great way to finish up, I think. How do people listening, if they have something that you said today that struck a chord with them, they want to reach out, they want to collaborate, how do they find you, and how do they have a conversation?
So go to the company website, engagelearning.org. I'm on social media too. So Kelli Elizabeth Smalling or Kelly Matthews Smalling or Kelly Baker Smalling. Those are across LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And my door is open as a human. I take that approach because every time I talk with someone, every time I share or break bread or have a coffee or just a Zoom call, I'm learning more about how beautiful our state is and how many people and programs exist out there to leave our space untouched when necessary and shinier where we can.
Awesome. I will put those links in the description down below. People can go click on those right away and send you a message. And go get the best pint of Guinness in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
I'll let Kelly tell you where that is. But if you like Guinness, then Kelly can take you for a Guinness at the greatest spot.
Yes,
ever.
I will tell you. You have to reach out there. I'm not going to plug anybody right now.
Exactly. But yeah, thank you so much for sitting down. I appreciate you.
Same, fella.
Love the heart that you have for just doing what you do and giving to others. And yeah, it's fun to sit across from you and see the passion that you have and come across in not the words that you have, but also in the way that you say them. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And for people listening, we'll catch you next episode.
Live long and prosper.
Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too, but I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC, and hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.